understanding. So what are the learning outcomes? Discovering your strengths. Today you will discover your strengths. Most of you have already taken the test, strength test. So you will have, say, 5 of your strengths, but they are what has been, say, identified by that psychometric software, and based on your responses and based on your choices. What we are going to do, we are going to deep dwell into your practical life, personal life, your experiences and all that, and we are going to revisit those strengths. And maybe after today's session, whatever is your test result, for example, your test shows 5 strengths, you might retain the 3 of those strengths, and you might change 2 of the strengths based on the today's session and the questionnaire what you are going to discuss. Alternatively, it might happen that you will add few more strengths which were not given from that particular psychometric test. So what analysis we are going to do is much more than the psychometric test result. Then we are also going to explore the state of the flow. That is how you can go into the flow. Of course, means I'm just going to introduce the topic, right? So getting into flow itself is a very big process, right? But it is possible for you to get into that particular process. And then finally, discovering your values. So again, you are going to discover today your values, not only based on the value test. What this value test does, value test ask you some question, compare whether this value is more important, that value is more important, and finally you arrive at your values. Of course, the test has a meaning, right? So the result what this particular value test gives, right, is there. It may not be 100% accurate, but it is there. What we are going to do today, you are going to discuss on the very pertinent questions on the values, because many times we misunderstand value, right? So we think that the value is what I aspire for. No, value is not what you aspire for. That you are going to learn today, and with the proper questions, right, you will derive, discover, and ascertain your values, right? Means there is a test and there is a today's discussion. So the idea that at the end of the today's discussion, surely you should have much better clarity on your own strengths and your own values. So this is the outcome of this particular session. Then we will of course move to the next session after 2 hours. So the high five test, most of you have already completed. It is already there. Now we will go through the.
Your mic is on mute.
You went on mute. Yeah.
When? Just now?
Just few seconds.
Okay. Yeah. So now. So why I'm putting it on mute for the video duration, because there is some noise in my house. So I'm just putting mic on the mute, but the video will be on. I'm sharing my computer sound.
If you want to win at work, you need to spend most of your time cultivating and refining your strengths, and then a limited amount of time trying to manage around your weaknesses. The least successful people at work take their strengths for granted and focus on fixing themselves. Don't do that, unless you want to be average. One of the things you'll be told at work is that your strengths are what you're good at and your weaknesses are what you're bad at. So if your strengths are what you're good at, your weaknesses are what you're bad at, you are the least qualified person to identify your strengths and weaknesses because you're too close to them. But that's not the right definition of strength or weakness. Because don't you have some things that you're really good at that you hate? Some things that because you're driven or because you're responsible or something, you can do them. You can do them really well, except they drag you down and bore you and drain you. What do we call that? What do we call something where you're really good at it, but you hate it? Let's call that a weakness. Let's redefine strength and weakness. A weakness is an activity that weakens you. Before you do it, you try to procrastinate it. While you're doing it, time just drags on. When you're done with it, you're like, so what's the strength? A strength is an activity that strengthens you. Before you do it, you just find yourself leaning into it. While you're doing it, you're in what's called flow. Time just speeds up. And when you're done with it, you might not be ready to do it again, but you're like, there are some activities that for whatever reason, it's not race, gender, age, it's just the uniqueness of how your brains work. There are some activities that fill you up. So if we define a strength as an activity that strengthens you and a weakness as an activity that weakens you, you are the best judge of both. When you go to work, one of the things you're going to be told a lot is that you should seek out negative feedback. That if you really want to grow, if you really want to have a growth mindset with your career, you should seek out people that tell you the truth about you, and that you should take their candid feedback in and somehow work it so that you can become ever more perfect. The truth is, you don't want that. Don't seek out critical or negative feedback ever. First of all, when you do, we know from brain science, your brain goes into what's called flight or fight. Your sympathetic nervous system lights up and your brain basically kind of shuts down as it tries to survive. Negative feedback inhibits your learning and creates impairment, so don't seek it out. Instead, what you should seek out is positive coaching attention. What that sounds like is you work for someone and you do something that works. You should ask that person, don't just praise me, tell me when I did something that worked, what worked about it? What was it that made you lean in? What was it that made you go, huh? You want somebody to help you see it and pull it apart a wee bit so that you can take what's unconscious and make it conscious, so that you can actually recreate it, refine it, and do it again. One of the things you got to remember is that no one's got a brain that's wired quite the way that yours is. Because of the clash of your chromosomes, because of your early childhood experiences, your brain is wired totally uniquely. That means you have unique strengths and unique weaknesses. You have sort of thickets of synaptic connections where there's a ton of them, and then you have some barren mental wastelands. What people will tell you at work is the best way to grow is to take your strengths for granted and then fix these. That's not true. If you want to grow, you'll figure out where you have some natural advantages, some natural strengths, and you will cultivate those. Your strengths are your areas for improvement. We actually know how your brain grows. Your brain grows more synaptic connections where you have the most pre-existing synaptic connections. Brain scientists say that learning, your learning, is like new buds on an existing branch. It's not new branches. So if you want to learn and grow, you won't ask the people around you to pat you on the head for your strengths. You'll say to them and to yourself, how can I take what I do naturally well, that naturally fulfills me, and turn it into contribution? What about this stuff? Well, your weaknesses, I'm not suggesting you ignore them. This isn't just the power of positive thinking. There's some stuff that you've got to fix. We need to give you a machete and sort of cut a little path, a mental path through this wasteland. Get a little better at some things. But when you do that, don't imagine that you will ever get to excellence. Excellence is never fixing weaknesses. Best case scenario for you, best case. With your weaknesses, you go from really bad to bad, or maybe bad to zero. But if you want to win, if you want to excel, if you want to stand out, you're going to have to take the few unique things about you that are beautiful and powerful and take them seriously and then turn them into contribution. That is all about your strengths and how you refine them and how you share them with the rest of us.
So the concept is excel with the strength of your strengths. Always work on further improving your strengths while managing your weaknesses so that they will not hinder. So do not try to convert your weaknesses into some kind of strength or some kind of excellence. No, weaknesses need to be just managed somehow, and your whole energy, your more than 80% energy should go on enhancing your strengths further. So this is the concept of the strengths. So with this particular concept, now we will move to the concept of a flow. And this is a concept which has helped me a lot in my life. So the flow is the first part of the equation of the flow is you should be clear about your purpose. Okay, don't think about purpose as some too big purpose or the human life purpose. No, no, no. Right now, I'm not talking about that kind of thing. The purpose of you doing something, why you are doing what you are doing is the purpose, right? If you are clear on your life purpose, fantastic. But maybe even the life identifying your life purpose is also a process. Whatever purpose you thought for your life 10 years before may not hold true now or may not hold true after 10 years, right? So even your purpose will evolve. I'm talking about what is your right now purpose, right? What is why you are doing the things what you are doing. So this is one aspect. Another aspect is where your passion lies. Again, passion is also a dynamic thing, right? So I might be passionate about something now, but after 10 years, I might be passionate about something else. So what is your current passion? What do you love to do now? So this you need to understand. And then your strengths. And again, the strengths are not what you are only good at. Strengths are what energize you. Strengths are what flourishes you. Means your mind, body, soul connection gets strengthened. You go into the flow. You forget about the time when you are working on that particular matter which is related to your strength. So once you understand these particular 3 points, any work which is aligned with your purpose, aligned with your interest and passion, and aligned with your strengths, generate the flow in you. And when you are in a flow, your efficiency, your effectiveness, your concentration and focus enhances like anything. Your output multiplies many times when you are in flow. Now there are variety of the techniques to go in flow, and there are many videos and the articles even in the coach study guide. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain one a very practical technique which no book has, because it is not there in the articles and the videos. I am just sharing this one particular tip with you, how to go in flow. And there is a science behind it which I'm not going to explain you in detail, otherwise it will take too time. So there are say brain waves, right? So there is a beta wave, there is a gamma wave, there is a delta wave, and all that. So for coming into flow, you have to change the wave pattern of the brain, right? So once you change that particular wave pattern, you come into flow. Is one of the techniques of flow. I'm not saying it is the only technique of the flow. So what practical thing? Okay, I'm there is some sound. So okay, yeah, Raghu. Okay, okay, yeah, okay. So what I do to come into flow? So forget about the science right now, but I'm assuring you that there is a science behind what I'm saying, but I'm just telling you the technique now. So the technique is what you do. For example, you are working on some particular project, and of course, the project is purposeful and it is related to the passion, it is related to the strength as well, right? And but you are not coming into flow. In spite of that, you are getting tired or something like that. There are some kind of distractions, or you are not finding your way, right? Means you are not happy with the progress, uh, in spite of the fact that it is of your passion. What you do, you take a break. You take a small break. Means when I say the small break, I'm talking about the few hours or one day break is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a vacation of few weeks. I'm just talking about few hours and say maximum up to 24 hours break, wherein you will not think about the project at all, purposely, right? So the purposely you will go partying, purposely you will do something, purposely you will go for a trekking, or purposely you will watch movie and go for outing, and purposely you will talk anything other than the project. So your mind, the subconscious mind is continuously working on the project, right? Now you are consciously getting away from that particular work, and that particular break, right, is what is needed for the brain, right, to get that particular energy for that particular project when you restart the project. And now when you restart the project, because of this particular gap what you have, right, the brain waves change from the beta to more intense waves when you restart the project. So taking a gap, right, taking a purposeful gap has a great science in it, right? So this is what I have done many times. What I do means, if I'm working on some design and development of the program or something like that, or I'm working on any content development, right? So I take a break. I go for a party, or I take a say one day break. After that one day, I have 100% of the times found that now after one day or after few hours, I am coming up with much better idea. and my efficiency and effectiveness is increasing. So this flow, if you can harness the power of flow in your life, what output you can deliver, right? You cannot imagine right now. Of course, if few of you have already experienced this particular condition of flow, then you have experienced. The people who have not experienced this particular condition of the flow will get immense benefit from this particular science of flow, and this is a science of flow.
The ability to focus the mind for a sustained period of time evokes the state of being in the zone, which allows us to achieve the impossible. This occurs because the conscious mind shuts down to allow the wisdom of the unconscious mind and body to take over. Muscle memory takes over while the sense of you doing the task has been reduced. According to cognitive science, the analytical conscious mind, the ego persona, what you refer to as you, is located within the cerebral cortex, which covers the front of the frontal lobe of the brain. This part of the brain is known as the prefrontal cortex, PFC. It is a part of the brain that evolved later than many of the others in an effort to navigate through the increasing planetary obstacles we continually encountered. Cognitive science refers to the prefrontal cortex's analytical function as cold cognition or System 2. Cold cognition is the cognitive control function of the mind, which gives us the ability to exert effort and discern between this and that, and which formulates our opinions of right and wrong or good and bad based on our own personal experience. In our modern world, the cold cognitive aspect of the mind is continually overemployed from the beginning of life through education and then throughout working life, where it is thought that if we continue to force our effort continually, we will achieve our desired result. But as we all surely know, this is hardly ever achieved because our focus is constantly distracted by the bombardment of external stimuli. This analytical, active part of our mind in the prefrontal cortex is physiologically expensive if it is not supported by the more primal regions of the brain that we associate with the unconscious mind. The function of the unconscious regions of the brain is known in cognitive science as hot cognition or System 1. Hot cognition is the function of our mind and body that is automatic, spontaneous, fast, effortless, mostly unconscious, and thought to be emotionally driven. Hot cognition is located within the earlier developing primal regions of the brain and is associated with the unconscious. Its spontaneous and effortless function is what makes our head turn unconsciously when we see something beautiful in the environment. Maybe a handsome man or a ravishing woman, for example. And it can sometimes be a hindrance, as when we find ourselves unconsciously reaching for that piece of chocolate cake, a habit that arises from the way we evolved to seek sugar for momentary sustenance. On the one hand, hot cognition can produce all the miracles that spontaneously grow out of the mind and universe, and on the other hand, it can lead us to being unhealthy because there is an abundance of sugar that is constantly tempting us, for example. This is where the discernment of cold cognition is beneficial for our well-being. The positive aspect of hot cognition is what drives those unconscious, spontaneous miracles achieved by many sports people. It is also what allows a musician to play her instrument without having to think about it. It is what allows artists, no matter whether they are painters, writers, musicians, gardeners, or athletes, to express the unconscious wisdom of the universe that lays dormant within our hot cognition. In all of these examples, the cold cognition within the prefrontal cortex that gave birth to the sense of I, the personality, has shut down to allow the effortless flow of the universe to come to life. But we tend to think of ourselves as an I in the mind, separate from our body, and many of our philosophies and religions reflect this perspective. The sense of the mind-body dualistic split is overcome when the I is decreased, leading to an integration of hot and cold cognition where the mind is embodied and the body is mindful. The idea of the I as a ruler of the body is a notion going back to Plato's analogy in his Phaedrus of the charioteer and his wild horses that need to be tamed. Plato's charioteer is a metaphor for our mind as master, cold cognition, while the wild horses represent the untamed, animalistic, and ultimately unconscious body, but at the same time the natural and spontaneous movements of life, hot cognition. The person you think of as yourself, the charioteer, with all these beliefs, desires, and attachments, is only your cold cognition in conflict with the hot cognitive processes, which appear unconscious and untamed when they are not disciplined. This overemphasizes the mind-body split and makes us believe that this is the way a human being is in a yang-oriented world. We experience embodied cognition, on the other hand, when our psychosomatic organism has reached a state of homeostasis, with perfect balance between yin and yang. When we cultivate yin, the sense of I submerges into the hot cognitive processes of the body, which evokes intelligent spontaneity. This intelligent spontaneity is the skill of the craftsman and the art of Wu Wei. The irony of skill, though, is that the cold cognition is required to process the information of any particular skill through intellectual understanding and constant repetition before it becomes ingrained in the hot cognition, becoming second nature. The skill and art of intelligent spontaneity is the consciousness of one who is in the zone. Being in the zone occurs when we cultivate yin. Accomplished athletes, writers, actors and actresses, artists, and other achievers are adept at cultivating yin in their lives. The master of any craft has embodied his skill to such a heightened state that his actions are essentially effortless and are devoid of thought or even a sense of a person doing the actions. The embodied skill of a craftsman, where cold and hot cognition have merged to evoke universal intelligence, is a metaphor for the enlightened and effortless mind of Wu Wei. This understanding is captured in the story of Cook Ding, also known as Butcher Ding, in the Zhuangzi text. In the story, Cook Ding is cutting up an ox for Lord Wen Wei. Lord Wen Wei is extremely impressed by Cook Ding's skill at cutting up oxen so effortlessly. Cook Ding explains that he encounters the ox with his spirit, and this allows the spiritual energy of the Tao to take over. He states, "What I care about is the way, which goes beyond skill. When I first began cutting up oxen, all I could see was the ox itself. After 3 years, I no longer saw the whole ox. And now I go at it by spirit and don't look with my eyes. Perception and understanding have come to a stop, and spirit moves where it wants. I go along with the natural makeup, strike the big hollows, guide the knife through the big openings, and follow things as they are. So I never touch the smallest ligament or tendon, much less a main joint." In China, Cook Ding's embodied skill and intelligent spontaneity is known as seeing from spirit. Seeing from spirit occurs when the sense of I has diminished, which essentially means that the cold cognition has decreased its influence so that we can perceive reality from the holistic hot cognition. The Cook Ding passage illustrates how intelligent spontaneity is evoked and realized as our nature when the sense of someone doing something has disappeared. Even when life is in motion and actions appear to be happening, they are effortless, because the sense of I doing it has disappeared. Thus, the non-doing of Wu Wei evokes effortless action, where the mind is not attached or stuck to any aspect of reality. Cook Ding's effortlessness and unstuck mind is a metaphor for the effortless mind in Wu Wei all the time, which is the enlightened state of a sage. This essentially means that our natural state is to be in the zone all the time, but it has been eclipsed by our intellectual training, which, with its tendency to dissect life, eclipses this reality. The Cook Ding story underscores the fact that when we are in intelligent spontaneity, we are harmonizing with the environment. The cook's skill demonstrates that when we cultivate yin, evoking intelligent spontaneity, we see that the apparent duality of an inner world isolated from the outer world is an illusion. In the effortless state of intelligent spontaneity, both realities are one and the same. But this perception can only be achieved when yin cultivation has transformed the mind into the natural effortless state. The effect of intelligent spontaneity occurs because yin cultivation methods bring us in touch with a function of our nervous system that has been suppressed from overdoing the yang. In activating the PSNS through yin cultivation, we get in touch and become more intimate with the enteric nervous system, ENS, located in the gut. The ENS is a mesh-like network of neurons that governs the function of the gastrointestinal system. It is more commonly known as gut instincts. Our gut instincts come from the enteric nervous system, and we can tune into them by downregulating the sense of I. If we do, we will hear messages from the gut louder and more clearly, and we can act in accord with spontaneous reactions and judgment calls. We begin to move as though we can sense the future that we are about to experience. But all that has really happened is that the ENS is functioning without the hindrance of the prefrontal cortex and, like hooked in, is aligned with the environment. Activating the ENS evokes our natural spontaneity, removing the fog of intellectual discernment. When we cultivate yin, our gut instincts are in sync with the environment and with each situation. This allows us to be natural and effortlessly spontaneous, which are signs of mental authenticity and a pure heart. Lao Tzu's teaching of sticking to the yin with a conservative application of the yang aligns you with the universal order of Tao. Your entire being becomes an extension of the universe, as the universe has become your entire body. Its magic and splendor come to life as your perception is cleansed and intelligent spontaneity has been evoked, bringing universal harmony to the world through your consciousness.
Okay, so now what we are going to do? So now you are going to go into pairs, and I prefer that pairs should be the buddy partners, because this is going to help you into the buddy coaching sessions as well. So in the breakout room, I'm going to take names as I see, and that particular person has to tell me the name of the partner, so that then I will click, and then I will create this pair rooms. How you are going to tell me who is your partner. So what you are going to discuss in this particular room, and I'm going to put this 10 pointers on the WhatsApp group, and then based on that you go. So the number one, that means, for example, now there is a pair. So I will ask you the question and you will answer the question. So I will ask you the question. Tell me about some of the biggest challenges in your life and how do you overcome them? Now, actually, you are using your strength to overcome the challenges. So now when you are going to tell the story, don't go into the details. Why? Because you will have only 10 minutes to complete the 10 questions. So practically, you cannot take more than 1 minute to a question. So be wary of the time. It should not happen that in 20 minutes only single person is talking and there is no opportunity given to the other person. No, 10 minutes per person is the time management. So you have to basically remove the details. You don't go for the details, but go to the crux. What is the purpose of the question? The purpose of the question is to not to know your company name or your the exact detail. The purpose of the question is, what is that you have done to overcome the challenges, and is that your strength? Then the question number two, what do you like about yourself? Right? Means it is your liking. Then the third question is, what do you enjoy doing? Again, what do you enjoy doing is related to your strength. I'm not saying it is your strength, but definitely it is related to your strength. So all this exploration is going to derive few of the strengths in you at a practical level. Not that some test is going to tell you. You will derive your own strength. Number 4, what do you earn to do? That is, you are desperate to do it. Like Lakshmi means from the yesterday he was telling, okay, I want to share the story. So he is passionate about that. He is passionate about the yogic paths. So that passion has resulted into he narrating this particular story to us. So he enjoys doing it and he is earning to do it, right? Then number 5, what are the some unusual skills you have? They are also pointing out toward the strength. What are you proud of in your life? What are the 3 of your greatest strengths as per you? They may match with that particular test result. They may not match with the test result. It is immaterial. But what do you think as your greatest strength? Now, you can also tell me about your first achievement, because your first achievement is related to your unconscious strength. At that time, you were not aware about all these analysis and all that. Maybe it's a childhood achievement. That tells you your natural strength. What do you, what would not be like it is, right? Means had you not been part of it, means what is the meaning of this question? The meaning of this question is you made a change, right? So if you were not in that particular team or in that particular event or situation, the result would have been different. Because of you in it, something positive happened. And that will give you insights into what is your real strength. And finally, a 360-degree feedback. What do you get most complimented for? That is, people say, no. Yes, Lakshmi, Raghu, you are good in this, right? So now what we are doing? We are relating with our past, right? We are deep diving into our experiences. We are also taking cognizance of what people are thinking about you in discovering the strengths. And while you are discovering the strengths, remember the purpose of the exercise. The purpose of the exercise is not storytelling, right? The purpose of the exercise is that after this exercise, you should realistically, practically, rationally, logically derive at your at least 3 core strengths. This is the purpose of this particular exercise. So I'm going to put all these particular 10 questions on the WhatsApp group. So of course, the values are the things which are important for you, right? So where you think that, okay, this thing is important for me in my life, that has a direct relation with your value, and you believe it, means it is not at a Shravan level, right? It is not at a knowledge level. It is at the application level. So you really are working on those particular values. So if you ask me, values are at Nidhi level, wherein you are already experimenting with them. You believe that they are true. You believe that they are the way of life. Like I was hearing, someone was telling that is okay, his life purpose is to contribute to the world as maximum as possible, right? Now for that particular value, that contribution is now the value of that particular person. So now why values matter? Because your happiness is directly related and attached to your values. When you do the things which you value, you get happiness, full stop. Now, what is the difference between the universal values and a personal values? Love, peace are universal values, right? Even a values which are related to ethics, right, are actually the universal values. They are for the mankind. So when you talk about the values, do not tell me the value of love and peace. It is common sense as a human being, right? So love, peace, and all those values are generic in nature. They are values. They are very important. But I am not looking for those values. I am looking for very specific personal values which will help you in your day-to-day decision making. So this is my small definition of personal values. What is my small definition? The very specific value, right, which will help me in my day-to-day decision making, because I want you to take value-based decisions and not the situation-based decisions, value-based decisions. For example, my one of the values is continuous improvement to achieve excellence is my one of the values. Now, what I do, because this is my value of continuous improvement to achieve excellence, I do not aim at perfection at the start itself, right? So I launch the product, I launch the service with a good amount of research and all that, but I try to continuously improve it. What is my goal? My goal is excellence. But is my goal of excellence is at the start? No. My goal of excellence is through the process, right? So there is a time which I give to myself to reach that particular excellence. Now that removes pressure on my mind. That removes or that helps me in introduce the products or the services quickly. Because if my value is perfection, then I cannot do it, right? Because my value is perfection. Unless that product or the service is perfect, I cannot launch it, right? So this is how your value helps you, and this is how you use your values into your day-to-day decision making. For example, my value is collaboration. So what I do, for each and everything, I look for the collaboration opportunities. When I launch the program, I launch the program with collaboration. With my students, I am always looking for collaboration. With my faculties, I am always looking for collaboration. I offer jobs to my own students. I offer assignments to my own students and the faculties. Why? Because I believe in a family culture. I believe in a collaborative environment, right? So my all decision making is directly influenced by my value, right? Which is collaboration. Like that, you need to come up with the values which necessarily influence your day-to-day decision making as well as long-term decision making. That is what I am calling you. That is what I am calling as a personal value. So these are few of the examples of the values. Means, of course, I don't go for this, but there are some examples. So just hold for a second. Huh? Okay, so now let us understand. See, this is a extremely important video on which now you are going to discuss in a breakout room how you will understand your values, because many times our values are not our values, they are our aspirations, right? We desire to become that. That is not your value. Your value is what you are already working on. It is not your aspiration. It is not your dream. It is not something in book. It is not something in Vedas and Upanishad. No, that is not your value. Value is what you are currently living, taking decision with reference to that, right? That is your value. So these 12 to 13 questions explained in this video, when you are seeing video, start thinking, okay, in my case, what is this? In my case, what is this? So means utilize your time smartly by start thinking about your values when you are seeing this particular video. Let me see the sound settings. Yeah, okay, good. The sound was not shared. So now it is shared. Video quality, fine. Start.
Well, if you ask somebody about what their values are, most people unknowingly are, because they've been raised by mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, and because they've been inculcating the mores, traditions, conventions of peer groups of different scaled sizes. They have been injecting the values of those that are leaders in society's ideals, and they confuse what is really important to them individualistically compared to what they think it should be. Whenever you hear yourself saying, I should do this, I ought to be doing this, I need to do this, I got to do this, I have to do this, I must do this, I have to do this, that's an imperative deontological duty that you feel you're going to do. You're living by ought tos instead of what you would really love tos. And most people don't even know what their values are. And I've asked gosh, tens of thousands of people over the years to define and write what they think their values are. And then I do a more objective evaluation, and it's not the same. What they write are ideals, you know, honesty, integrity, peace, and all this other stuff. It's just bullshit, instead of what their life is actually demonstrating is important to them. So I had to develop, as a result of that, a series of value determinants that gave at least a little bit more objective view based on what their life is actually demonstrating. Because if you go by what they say, they'll give you an idealism, and it'll give you an injected value by outside authorities. And that starts at a young age. Freud said it starts at age 1. The second you stand up and start to walk around and everything else, you got to baby-proof a house, your mom starts saying no, yes, no, 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 yes, yes. And they start inculcating, as a result of dependency on the mother, the values of the mother. And so now there's a conflict between their own values and the mother's values. And we've called that socialization. We've called that how to fit in and conform to society. But that's great if you want to conform, but society doesn't evolve by conformist. It evolves by individuals that are innovative, that are willing to possibly be ridiculed for having new ideas. So most people conform. 99% of the population conform and have varying degrees of injected values instead of their own true life demonstrating values. So I had to go through there and identify something that would indicate what their life is demonstrating, not what they think it should be. And I look at how they fill their space, because even a baby in a little baby crib or whatever will, if you toss something into the baby crib, the playpen or whatever, it will, if it's something that it wants that's really valuable to it, it'll stick in its mouth and it'll hold on to it and look at it, observe it and explore it and keep it close to it, to the baby. But if it's something that it doesn't want and it has no value on it, it will kick it out, throw, scream, cry, push it away. Because anything that is close to us, that's proximal to us, is valuable. Anything that we push away and don't want around our space is obviously less valuable. And so what is measured in our intimate and personal space, our 1.5 to 4 feet around us, has a lot to do with what we value. So the first value determinant is, what do we fill our space with? Our intimate space and personal space. What are the 3 highest priority items that most consistently we have around us? It could be our cell phone, it could be our computer, it could be our children, it could be technology, it could be food, clothes. It depends on what we value. My daughter is involved in fashion, so around her were fashion items and clothes and things. So she was looking at creative ideas. Myself, it was books for many years, and now it's computer really. So if you look at what a person's space is filled with, it tells you what they value. The second one is time. You know, if you look carefully at what you spend your time on, you make time, find time, spend time on things that are really valuable to you. You run out of time, don't want to spend time, and can't find time for things that aren't. And you may have a moment-to-moment variation based on the urgencies, but overall, the scheme of your life is demonstrating this. So you look at how you fill your space and how you spend your time. Those are 2 really great indicators of what's really valuable to you. Because if you say, I want to be financially independent, but your life doesn't demonstrate that you're accumulating wealth, and there's no demonstration of working and investing in money and stuff like that, then it's a fantasy. The third thing is what energizes you. When you're really around something that's valuable to you, your energy goes up. And when you're not, your energy goes down. So you look at what energizes you most. You know, I always have energy for doing presentations and educating, and also my research. But I don't have patience, you might say, or a lot of energy for going to a cooking class, for instance, or a driving class. That would be it. Or going to a car show or something. That means nothing to me. So I'd be bored with that. So you look at where you're energized and where you're not, and what energy, what grows your energy, and you always have energy for it, and you're energized doing it, and you can wake up and you're animated, your reticular activating system is alive when you're doing it. That's an indication of what you value. The next one is what you spend your money on and find money for. you'll find money, you'll make money, you'll spend money on things that are valuable. And you won't want to spend money on something that's devalued. Who wants to spend money on something that they don't think is a value? They don't want to exchange that way. So look at where you spend your money, and it tells you what you value. When I was in my 20s, I was buying 40 to 70 books a week on average. And so I obviously had a value on learning and books and was reading voluminously books. Later on in my life, it was different things, but right now it's investments and education and getting messages out to the world. So you look at what you're spending your money on. The fifth thing, is where are you most organized and ordered? Because things that are not really important to you, you don't get around to, you don't put order to them, it's chaotic and etc. But where your highest order is. My highest order is the knowledge that I've accumulated. My research is organized. My traveling is organized. My speaking is organized. So I look at where I'm most organized, and that's what you value. And if you say, well, I'm not organized, you're not paying attention to it. And if you think you're not organized because you're comparing yourself to other people and you're expecting to be organized in something that's not really important to you, but you think it is because you've injected that value. And that's confusing. So people are, I'm not organized. Yes, you are. You're organized in what's valuable to you. I've been doing it a long time. I guarantee it's true. The next one is where you're most disciplined and reliable. You can count on me to be researching every day. You can count on me to be looking up articles. You can count on me to be updating and writing in my manuals for seminars. You can count on me for, up until recently, traveling. So whatever's highest on your value, you're extremely disciplined in, and you spontaneously do things. And that tells you what you value. The next three are what do you think about, what do you visualize, and what do you internally dialogue with yourself about most, about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence of coming true. And you take each one of those and you write down the top three answers to each, one after another. And they may be slightly different answers, but there'll probably be a scheme there, a theme there. It'll be reiterated. But what is it you think about, visualize, and affirm about how you would love your life? And make sure it's how you would love your life and not how you don't want it. And make sure there's evidence that you're making progress on it. If there's no evidence, don't write it down, because that's a whim or a fantasy. I need to know, what is the evidence? I have evidence that I want to travel the world, teach. I don't have evidence of other things that I fantasize about that don't show up. Don't write down things that aren't showing any evidence. Write down what is. And you'll see a pattern. I guarantee it'll be a pattern. The next one is, what do you want to converse with other people about most? And what do you keep engaging in conversations with people? If you do, you start to be extroverted and talk, and you tend to be engaged in listening. That tells you what you value. The next one is, what is inspiring to you and what's consistent to the people who inspire you? If I look at who've inspired me, it's been the great Nobel Prize winners and all their works, all the great philosophers and thinkers, all the leaders in various fields that were innovative, that created a new form, or the father of this, the mother of this, the originator of this. Anybody who's creative and original in their ideas, I've been inspired to read and study and read their biographies. So look at what is inspiring to you in people, and what is the things that you do that bring tears to your eyes. Every moment you actually get a tear in the eye from anything, listening music or going to a movie or whatever, get a tear. Write down what it was that was in your mind at the moment of the tear, and document the inspirations, because they're guides. The next one is, what are the three most consistent things three most consistent and persistent goals you have about what you want to create in your life that you're showing evidence coming true? What are the goals that are actually coming true? You know, I do a desire to travel the world. I desire to gather a vast amount of information and share it. They are coming true. There's other things that I thought were whims that I wanted to do, but it never got around to doing them. Those eventually fade out, and you realize that they're just whims, they're not real. You got to look at what your life is really demonstrating to know what's really important to you. And the last one is, what do you love studying about, reading about, learning about, listening to about most, that you just spontaneously want to learn? Because you want to learn what's important to you. You don't want to learn things that aren't. You want to fill your mind with what's important. What's interesting is that if you answer all 13 of those questions and answer with integrity, and not write down what you fantasize or what you wish it would be or hope it would be or what it used to be, but what it is now and recently and most consistently, If you do and answer 3 answers each, it'll summarize, and you'll look at which of those answers are repeated most, second most, third most, fourth most, and you'll have 3 to 5 answers that will be the top 3 values in your life. And if you look at that, you'll get a sense of it, and it'll be obvious. And you'll see your identity revolves around it. You'll see that the thing you love learning is revolves around it. You'll see that that's where you're most disciplined. But by identifying through the value determination process, the 13 value determinants that I created, it increases the probability of being clear about what it is. And if you link what you perceive, what you decide, what you act on to that, you're going to be engaged. There's absolutely no reason why we can't be engaged. I tell people, either go do what you love through delegating, or go love what you do through linking. And engaging is about linking whatever you're doing, whatever you're perceiving, to whatever is highest on your values. So you start to see things on the way, not in the way. And you see things as feedback, not frustration or failure.
So now I'm going to post this into our WhatsApp group. So right now it is 10:35. So the 15 minutes, so 10:50. By 10:50, the same groups will discuss on this particular 10 aspects. I'm going to post, don't worry. And the same breakout rooms, I have already opened the breakout rooms. Please join your respective breakout room. Meantime, I am sharing those particular values on our group. Questions for the values. So I have made, instead of 13, I have made 10 questions. Yeah, so it is already on the WhatsApp group. Please carry on your discussion.
We need to start discussing about individual values, is it?
Individual values, the 10 questions have been posted on the WhatsApp group. So you go by that particular questions, answer questions, right? So ask question, let the your partner answer them so that they will become clearer.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is something which will take more time, right?
I don't know, means if the time will be more, I will extend it.
Anyway, let's give a try. This should be
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
All right.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All
yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Our buddy is here actually. He is in a hiding mode. Mr. Varun. Varun, you are on mute. Hi, Karthik.
Hello.
So I see a highly energetic smile on your face. Nice to see that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Highly contented smile. Hi, Abdur.
Hey,
कैसे हो?
லட்சுமி ஏதோ முறைச்சிட்டே நிக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கு அதனால கேக்குறேன்.
Yeah, I thought that was his still.
Oh, I thought, oh, video.
That's a video.
Oh.
Attaining stillness is a skill.
Yeah, that's a skill, exactly.
Yeah.
Very true, very true.
I thought it's a photo, yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
I understand that time management is a bit of issue for few of you, but all right, I'm going to give you two more more minutes to reflect on before you start your reflection about the strengths and values. So I'm just completing in 1 minute the summary. What we have seen today is how to excel with the strength of your strengths. So this is the concept. I'm not saying you are means you are yet to implement it. I understand that, but now we all are very clear. That is, we can excel only with our strengths and not by improving our weaknesses. You have to manage the weaknesses so that they will not hinder you. They will not have a threat to you. But you always work on your strength to excel it. Then the values are what is important to you, and not only what is important to you, but what you are already living. Values are not dream. Values are not that, okay, I really like Mahatma Gandhi and his ahimsa and all that. But are you following that? If you are not following that, then ahimsa is not your value, right? It is what you like, but not necessarily your value. So these 13 questions, there were some questions in this list which generally we don't think. Right, we generally don't think. Means, for example, my son Ashwin he has a value of the technology, and he buys stuff. He wants to see the good technologies around. So if you see his desk, you will find things which generally you don't find in normal person desk. He will have some gadget and all that. So it is very clear that his value is technology. But generally, without this education, he might not think that the technology is value. He will say love, peace, right, are my values. But that is not the case. His value is technology. So this is the beauty of these particular questions. I'm not saying each question will necessarily direct at some value, but the overall understanding of the answers to this question will surely derive at few values. And the personal values, I want you to derive the values which are not generic in nature, because generic values are not going to help you in your day-to-day decision making. I want all of you to take valuable decision making and make a very specific value which is implementable, which is actionable, by reference of which you can take day-to-day decisions.